The enduring mystery of Mistie Murray. It was a warm spring evening in 1995 when 16-year-old Mistie Murray stepped out of her dance class in the small town of Goderich, Ontario. She was supposed to head home, but she never made it. What followed was a mystery that would grip the community, divide a family, and leave investigators baffled for nearly 3 decades. Today in Ontario Cold Cases, we dive deep into the disappearance of Mistie Murray, a case that still haunts Goderich to this day. Welcome to Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's True Crime Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Nicoll of Nicoll Investigations. Each episode we explore unsolved mysteries from across Ontario, bringing you the facts, the theories, and the voices that matter. Our goal is simple: to shine a light in these cases and hopefully help bring answers to families who have waited far too long. Today we're taking you back to May 31st, 1995, to the picturesque town of Goderich, Ontario. Known for its historic charm and stunning views of Lake Huron, Goderich was the last place anyone expected a mystery like this to unfold. But in that day, 16-year-old Mistie Murray vanished without a trace, leaving behind a community in shock and a family desperate for answers. This is the story of Mistie Murray, a case that has seen trials, acquittals, and countless theories, but no resolution. We'll walk you through the timeline, the investigation, and the impact on those left behind. And as always, we'll ask the question: what really happened to Mistie? Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's True Crime Podcast. It's a gripping true crime podcast uncovering unsolved murders, disappearances, and forgotten crimes from Ontario and beyond. Told with deep research, compelling storytelling, and a voice for the victims. Join us today, where every clue could lead to answers, and every case deserves a second look. Who was Mistie Murray? Before we dive into the events of May 31st, 1995, let's get to know Mistie Murray. Born in 1979, Mistie was a typical teenager living in Goderich, a town of about 7,500 people on the shores of Lake Huron. She was petite, standing just 5 feet tall, and weighing around 115 pounds, with long brown hair and brown eyes. Friends and family described her as lively, spirited, and full of energy, though like many teens, she had her share of disagreements with her family. Mistie lived with her mother, Debbie, her stepfather, Stephen Murray, and her siblings. She was a student at Goderich District Collegiate Institute and was involved in local activities, including dance lessons, a passion that would play a key role in the day she disappeared. But Mistie's life wasn't without its challenges. According to reports, she had occasional conflicts with her family, particularly with her stepfather, Stephen. However, those who knew her insist that these were normal teenage struggles, and that Mistie had no reason to run away or disappear voluntarily. As we explore this case, it's important to remember Mistie not just as a victim, but as a vibrant young woman with dreams, friends, and a future that was tragically cut short. The day she disappeared. Now let's turn to the day that changed everything. May 31st, 1995. It was a Wednesday and Mistie had a dance class scheduled that evening at a local studio in Goderich. Around 7 o'clock p.m., her stepfather, Stephen Murray, dropped her off at the studio. This would be the last time any family member saw her. Mistie attended her class as usual. But what happened next is where the mystery begins. According to witnesses, Mistie was seen in downtown Goderich after her class, possibly near the town square or local shops. However, specific details about who saw her or what she was doing remain unclear, as police have not released all witness statements to the public. What we do know is that Mistie never returned home that night. Her mother, Debbie, grew increasingly worried as the hours passed. By late that night or early the next morning, Debbie reported Mistie missing to the Ontario Provincial Police, or the OPP. At first, the police considered the possibility that Mistie had run away. After all, she was a teenager and there had been some family tension. But her family quickly dismissed this idea. Mistie had no history of running away, and more importantly, she hadn't taken any personal belongings. No clothes, no money, nothing that would suggest she planned to leave. As the days passed, it became clear that something more sinister might have happened. The initial investigation. The OPP launched an immediate investigation, treating Mistie's case as a missing person. Search efforts were extensive with police, volunteers, and community members combing through Goderich and the surrounding areas. They searched wooded areas, local parks, the Maitland River, and even the shoreline of Lake Huron, fearing that Mistie might have had an accident or fallen into the water. But despite these efforts, no trace of her was found. Not her purse, not her clothing. Nothing. Investigators also interviewed family members, friends, classmates, and anyone who might have seen Mistie that night. Her stepfather, Stephen, was questioned early on, as he was the last family member to see her. Witnesses who saw Mistie downtown were also interviewed, but their accounts didn't provide a clear picture of her movements after the dance class. Within days, the runaway theory began to lose credibility. Mistie's family was adamant that she wouldn't have left without a word, and lack of any personal items taken with her supported their belief. By early June, the OPP shifted their focus, treating the case as a potential abduction or crime. But with no body, no crime scene, and no clear leads, the investigation faced significant challenges. Goderich was a small town, and in 1995, technology like surveillance cameras and cell phone tracking wasn't widely available. The police were left with little to go on. The case quickly became one of the most baffling in the region's history. Up next, the focus on Stephen Murray. The focus on Stephen Murray. As the investigation progressed, attention began to focus on Mistie's stepfather, Stephen Murray. According to reports, including an article from the London Free Press, police noted inconsistencies in Stephen's statements and found his behavior suspicious. He was the last family member to see Mistie, and some witnesses claimed there had been tension between them. In 1996, nearly a year after Mistie's disappearance, Stephen Murray was charged with second-degree murder. This was a shocking development, especially since no body had been found, and there was no direct physical evidence linking him to a crime. The charge was based largely on circumstantial evidence, including alleged inconsistencies in his alibi and behavior that investigators deemed suspicious. The trial took place in 1997, and it was a media sensation. The prosecution argued that Stephen had motive and opportunity, pointing to the family tensions and his proximity to Mistie and the day she vanished. However, the defense countered that there was no concrete evidence. No body, no forensics, no witnesses to any crime. It was a classic case of circumstantial evidence versus reasonable doubt. After a highly publicized trial, the jury acquitted Stephen Murray, citing insufficient evidence. The acquittal left the case in limbo, with no primary suspect and no new leads. For Mistie's family, it was a devastating blow. Her mother, Debbie, had been vocal about her belief that Mistie was abducted and met with foul play, and the trial's outcome only deepened the mystery. The investigation continues. Following Stephen Murray's acquittal, the investigation into Mistie's disappearance continued, but progress was slow. Over the years, police followed up on numerous tips, including reported sightings of Mistie across Canada and even in the United States. None of these leads panned out, and the case gradually grew cold. Periodic searches were conducted in and around Goderich, especially when new information came to light. For example, in the early 2000s, advances in forensic technology prompted a re-examination of evidence, but no breakthroughs were made. The OPP has stated that the case remains open and active, but as of today, Mistie has never been found. One of the challenges in this case is the lack of physical evidence. Without a body or any personal items, investigators have little to work with. Additionally, focus on Stephen Murray may have narrowed the investigation too early, potentially overlooking other suspects or leads. Despite these setbacks, Mistie's case has not been forgotten. It remains part of the OPP's cold case program, and her profile is still active on missing persons databases. The hope is that someday new information will come to light, perhaps from someone who knows what happened, or from a technological advancement that can unlock the mystery. Impact on family and community. Mistie's disappearance has left a lasting scar in her family and the Goderich community. Her mother Debbie has been a tireless advocate for answers, participating in media interviews and keeping Mistie's story alive. In a 2017 article from the London Free Press, Debbie expressed her frustration with the early focus on the runaway theory and her conviction that Mistie was a victim of foul play. The trial of Stephen Murray further divided the community. Some believed in his guilt, while others felt he was wrongfully accused. The acquittal left many questions unanswered, and the lack of closure has been painful for everyone involved. Goderich, a close-knit town, was deeply affected by Mistie's disappearance. The case prompted heightened awareness of child safety, and the community held vigils and fundraisers to support search efforts. Even today, Mistie's story is often discussed in local conversations about unsolved crimes, and her face remains familiar to many residents. Up next, theories and speculation. Theories and speculation. Over the years, numerous theories have emerged about what happened to Mistie Murray. But we must be careful not to speculate without evidence. It's important to acknowledge the possibilities that have been discussed. One theory is that Mistie was abducted by a stranger, possibly someone passing through Goderich, or a predator who targeted her. However, this theory is complicated by the lack of similar cases in the area at the time. Another theory suggests that Mistie may have met with an accident, perhaps falling into Lake Huron or getting lost in the woods. But extensive searches found no trace of her, making this less likely. Of course, there's also the theory that Stephen Murray was involved, despite his acquittal. Some believe that the circumstantial evidence was strong enough to warrant suspicion, while others argue that the case against him was weak and based on bias. Finally, there's a possibility that Mistie did leave voluntarily, perhaps with someone she knew and chose not to return. But again, her family strongly disputes this, and there's no evidence to support it. As with many cold cases, the truth likely lies somewhere in the intersection of these theories. But without new evidence, it's impossible to say for certain. Where the case stands today. As of June 2025, Mistie Murray's case remains unsolved. The OPP continued to list her as a missing person, and they encourage anyone with information to come forward. The case is periodically reviewed as part of the OPP's cold case program, but no significant developments have been reported in recent years. Mistie's story has been featured in various media outlets, including the London Free Press, and it continues to be discussed in true crime circles. Her profile remains active on missing persons databases, and age-progressed images have been released to show what she might look like today. For those who want to help, the best way is to share Mistie's story and keep her name in the public eye. If you have any information, no matter how small, please contact the OPP at 1-888-310-1122 or Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. You can also email tips to opp.isb.resolve@opp.ca. Mistie's family deserves answers, and after nearly 30 years, it's time for the truth to come to light. The disappearance of Mistie Murray is a case that has baffled investigators, divided the community, left a family in limbo for nearly 3 decades. Despite extensive searches, a high-profile trial, and countless tips, we still don't know what happened to Mistie on that spring evening in 1995. But one thing is clear. Mistie deserves justice, and her family deserves closure. As we continue to explore Ontario's cold cases, we must remember that left behind every mystery is a person, a life that was taken too soon, a story that needs to be told. Thank you for joining me in this episode of Ontario Cold Cases. If you have any information about Mistie Murray or any other case we cover, please reach out to the authorities. Together we can help bring answers to those who need them most. Till next time, stay safe and keep searching for the truth. This has been Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's True Crime Podcast, hosted by Jay Nicoll, Nicoll Investigations. To learn more about this case or to submit a tip, visit our website at substack.com/@OntarioColdCase. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review if you found this episode compelling. Your support helps us keep these stories alive. We'll be back next week with another case that needs your attention. Till then, take care. Because every case deserves answers, and every victim deserves justice. Subscribe now to Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's True Crime Podcast. Episodes available wherever you get your podcasts.